1 2 1 2.
I love you, Katie.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for being here. Long, hard weekend, a lot of hours. And as we've already came out publicly and talked about some of the Labor Day, the festivity, the parade, the Juve, some of the things that went on. Many of us were on this morning. I personally went out and we got the group here today to talk about how we see Labor Day weekend this year. Many of us here, we got the chief of department who spent many years in Brooklyn as a commander, Chief LaPetri, many years in Brooklyn as a commander. We're going to go through the history a little bit of Labor Day weekend so we can put in perspective what this event has looked like over the years and how far we've come with Labor Day weekend. And I'll say it again. Earlier I said that one shooting did not mar this entire parade. And we stand by that. We're the most victim-centric police department in the country. And so we are very sensitive when people get shot or lose their life. But we had hundreds of thousands of people out there. And it's our job to keep them safe. And for the most part, that was done. And for those that know the history, again, tremendous effort by the cops out there, not just on Monday, not just on Sunday, but from Thursday all the way through to Tuesday morning. All right, so I'm gonna have the chief of department take us through a little bit of his insights over his career in Brooklyn about this event. Then Chief O'Sullivan will give an update from the Detective Bureau on the actual shooting, and then Chief LaPetri will get into the Labor Day crime numbers. And then we'll take some questions on topic. Okay, Chief Madry?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Shepard. Good afternoon to members of the media for coming out to this Labor Day weekend crime briefing. And I want to just start off by saying I'm not speaking without regard to the victim who lost his life or the 4 other victims who were hurt by gunfire. My condolences goes to the family of the young man who lost his life, and I'm praying for those who are recovering. But with that said, I just want everyone to know that the NYPD was prepared, all right? Many people from the community, the clergy, our violence interrupters, grassroots leaders, Wyatica, Juve City, we were all prepared, all right? This is a massive undertaking. We're securing 4 neighborhoods in the northern and southern Crown Heights, Flatbush and East Flatbush. During this weekend, we took numerous guns off the streets. We kept hundreds of thousands, upward to 1 million people safe, all right? We allowed many events that are connected with the West Indian Day Carnival to occur, parties, house parties, other gatherings, and many people, many different cultures from the Caribbean and beyond were able to celebrate. Juve went off with no problems, an all-night event, no issues. And then about halfway through the West Indian Day Parade, some fool decides to fire a gun into a crowd, and ultimately hurting 5 people. We believe there was intent to hit a specific person, and others were caught in the gunfire by this senseless act. And when I was there in the aftermath, it crossed my mind to shut the parade down, to end it early. It did cross my mind. And as I was walking from the scene, numerous people who I did not know, were calling me out by name, Chief Madry, Chief Madry. And I would stop to talk to them. They said, Chief, please don't shut down this parade. Chief, is everything all right? People were concerned, but people still wanted to celebrate their heritage. And after speaking to a couple of people, it hit me right there in my heart. And I called Chief Shell, and I called Commissioner Daughtry, and I said, listen, we have to regroup. We have to get all the men and women of this department, all our partners out there, and we have to make sure we keep the rest of this event safe. And that's exactly what we did. We had no further incidents that night. And while we were out there, we took numerous guns off the street after this incident. I want to say to New Yorkers, and I want to say to everybody, if you feel the need to bring a gun to this festive cultural event, please stay home, all right? Don't come. Let good New Yorkers and visitors from abroad celebrate their day. This event is nothing like it used to be, all right? I think the first time I worked this event, it was as a young sergeant in the 77th Precinct in 1998, and I've been there ever since. Every year since 1998, I've been here, been at the event. And historically, this event was smeared by violence that occurred over the weekend at Juve and during the parade. But history also shows that the NYPD and the community have drastically reduced violence at this event, all right? We have cut shootings down, we have cut violence down, and we will continue to do that, all right? You heard the mayor say that we're not going to surrender to the criminal element, and everyone at this table concurs, all right? The NYPD is pushing down violence, we're pushing down crime, and we're not going to let New Yorkers, and we're going to continue to let New Yorkers enjoy the city. So with that, I'm going to let Chief O'Sullivan give a little bit of the investigation, and then we'll go on from there. Jerry?
Good afternoon, everybody. On Monday, September 2nd, at approximately 2:30 p.m., officers responded to shots fired in the vicinity of 309 Eastern Parkway. There was a rapid response. The officers were there within seconds, and medical personnel responded quickly. They observed 5 victims shot at that location, various ages between 16 and 69 years old. The injuries, EMS responded quickly, took the aides to various hospitals. The crime scene was established immediately as the parade was going on. We had a rapid response with our crime scene personnel and investigators from the 7 precinct and homicide were there very quickly. With that said, an investigation was ongoing, and we determined that there were 5 individuals shot and 1 was fatal. A 25-year-old male was shot in the lower abdomen and died from his injuries. With that said, we believe this is an isolated incident. We believe from witness that there was one shooter that jumped over the police barricade and fired in the direction of individuals that were present at that location. We believe this was an isolated incident, and we believe it was gang-related. The gang-related is based on the people we've identified as being at the scene and fleeing from this scene. We've quickly recovered ballistics at that location. We've identified the make and caliber of the firearm that was used in this incident. And so far, our investigation shows that this was one shooter that created this incident. With that said, we're going to continue to ask for the public's help. We're going to periodically release video as we obtain it that's probative to assist us in this investigation. We've been gaining information since this incident occurred, and we've been analyzing everything from video to ballistics evidence and interviews, and we've been getting a tremendous amount of help. We do not have a shooter in custody at this time. We're going to continue with our investigation. It's very thorough. At the same time, we're going to be cautious of what we said. But to summarize, I believe that this was an isolated incident. It was gang-related. And with that said, we're going to continue to seek the public's help. As I get video that's probative, I'm going to release it to DCPI and ask for the public's assistance.
Yeah, we'll turn it over to Chief of Crime Control Strategies, Chief Mike LePetri.
Good afternoon. So for reporting purposes, we looked at 5 commands starting at 3 p.m. on Friday and ending at 8 a.m. on Tuesday. Those 5 commands were the 6-7, the 7-0, the 7-1, the 7-3, and the 7-7. All those commands either touched the Juve Festival or the West Indian Day Carnival. When you look at the weekend as a whole, from Friday to Tuesday, the city saw a decrease of 5 shooting incidents, with 13 shooting incidents compared to 18. During the weekend, in those 3 commands, we saw four shootings with an increase of 1 from last year. So we took 3 last year, and this year we take 4 with those 5 commands. When you look at those hours and those precincts, 31 guns recovered, 35 arrests. I'm going to describe what the police officers out there are dealing with and who they're encountering with illegal firearms at that parade. We have Caesar Green, a male 18 years old, arrested with a loaded gun by brave young officers. Caesar Green shouldn't even be walking the streets of New York City. He has 2 prior open guns. The second gun that he has, Brooklyn DA's office asked for a high bail, and guess what? Things we see all the time. Walking around the streets with an NMR, non-monetary release. When we see non-monetary releases, we know what that means. No consequences. Do you think the New York City police officers that arrested him stopped the shooting? I do. Many, many years, like the chief said, also working that parade. And we know what happens when gang members carry guns. What we also saw was majority of the 35 arrests are gang members. When I look at the gang affiliations, they're from all over Brooklyn. And when you have hundreds of thousands of people coming into a 2-mile stretch of Eastern Parkway, and you have the few individuals looking to mar that parade, they're usually identified gang members, and they usually have an open violent crime. When you look at the parade, I think it's important to briefly talk about the safest month ever recorded for August in 31 years. We just came off the safest murders as far as murder victims. 15 too many. 15 too many. We know that. 15 murder victims in August across the city. Again, historic as far as a decline in violence across New York City. Thank you very much.
All right, so with that, we'll just open it up to some callers on topic Labor Day weekend violence questions.
Dan Rivoli. Hi, thanks for holding this. First question is why, or how did the suspect go into the wind so quickly? And my other question is, I do not want to discount the immense work you put in for the security plan. I get it. But the shooting did happen on the parade route during the day. This wasn't tucked away on a side street. How come the message is not, we owe it to Brooklynites to provide a safe parade where there is no deadly violence. We failed, we're sorry, and we're going to try better to make sure that happens next year.
Oh, let me, I'm going to have Chief O'Sullivan answer your first question, but we'll work backwards. Let's have Chief Madry and Chief Shell address what you said at the end.
And of course, we take responsibility for someone being hurt out there. We didn't pull the trigger, but we take responsibility because it is our job to keep New Yorkers safe. And I think that's what we've been working for many, many years. We sit in meetings with the community. We sit in meetings with elected officials and clergy. And we sit there because we're trying to devise ways to keep people safe. And that's us being accountable to the community and to the people who serve the community. So, of course, we take responsibility for it. I started off by saying this is without regard to the victims. Of course, I want condolences to the family, and I want those who were hurt to get better. All right, we accept responsibility for anybody that gets hurt at an event like this, but I also want people to know that we put a lot of energy and a lot of effort into this, and overall, we kept New Yorkers safe. But again, one person decided that it was, that they had the right to do something like that, which they didn't, and we will bring them to justice.
John?
Yeah, just quickly, when you say we failed, can you specify what that means?
Was a shooting in broad daylight on the parade route, just off Franklin Avenue, perhaps the busiest part of the parade route. This wasn't on Buffalo
All right.
Avenue. You get what
Well,
I'm saying.
it was on Franklin Easton, where probably our largest contingent of parade goers, plus you know there's 1 million people on the route. So to say we failed, I strongly disagree with you. Okay, that's number one. Number two, 1 million people at a parade. You've been to the parade before, correct? You know how busy the streets are during the parade. People are found on floats. So how does that happen? How it happened. All right, but I like to think, as human beings, when we responded quickly and our cops were running towards the danger, not looking to fail, as you put it, that as human beings we were upset what happened. As professionals, we're upset because we want our plan to be flawless. And we've set a high mark for this parade and Juve the last couple of years, a very high mark. So what can we do from that point on from the parade? Because we certainly didn't fail. We regrouped, as the chief of the department mentioned, and say, how can we on the move with this happening change? What can we do different? And what did we do different? We had a safe event the rest of the way. With our cops, we talk about gun arrests like they're just numbers and figs in a sheet. It's a very dangerous endeavor to approach people with firearms. As Chief LaPetri pointed out, the history behind those firearms, very dangerous to do, and we did it. So the one incident, we wish it didn't happen. Our hearts go out to them, because we're all fathers and moms and dads here. Our hearts go out to them. But to say we failed at one incident is just patently wrong. Okay?
Let me chime in.
Hold on
Commissioner
one
Shepard.
second, Cass.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to touch on one thing with Dan's question. You asked about how did he get away. If you've been to this parade before, thousands of people on the street. The music is deafening. You can't even hear your cell phone ringing out there. All right. And the minute the gunshot started, it was complete chaos. People were running everywhere. Our officers were there very fast. But now you're looking at thousands of people running in multiple directions. Some of our officers drew their guns and then they put their guns back in because they thought better of it. You have, hundreds of thousands of people running. How do you even get a clear shot? All right. Our officers use a lot of discretion out there as well. They went out there. They tried to accomplish the mission. We weren't able to make a quick apprehension. But again, we have the best detectives in the world, and they're going to bring this person to justice.
Commissioner, let me jump in over here. I spoke with the officers, the officers that were, as we would call it, first doing the scene, and immediately they told me that, hey, they didn't know. Did they have a general idea if they wanted? People were pointing in a direction for them to run. They looked, then they looked back and saw the victims laying on the floor. So you know what? They made the decision to go back and help those victims out first. And then obviously while they were in the process of helping them, giving them performing life-saving measures, they were getting from witnesses description of people who they think that who they thought might have committed the shooting. Secondly, if you look at that table over there, every last one of those guns were loaded. Those are I don't know how the exact count of the ammunition, but every last one of those live rounds in there is a life that was saved during that weekend, especially on a Labor Day parade.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think the question is so important. That's why we're spending so much time with it because, as I said earlier, from a child, I used to come from Harlem and go to this event. Some of them been on this police department over 30 years. And I think the thing here that we got to remember is that used to come to this parade, families would come with an expectation of violence. And it says a lot about this police department that now people come with an expectation that nothing should happen. That is a credit to the men and women of the police department and the community at large. And when you see, extended clips and guns like this taken off the streets, that's why it's not a failure.
Yes.
Our cops are the ones sitting with these victims and their families and talking to them about how much work they're going to put in and not getting any sleep while we're out here. His guys are out there spending the last 30-something hours straight trying to get this shooter, and we're going to get him. And as I said earlier, turn yourself in because you don't have much longer to be on the street. We're going to get you. So when you say a failure, we sit with these families and we talk to them and we let them know that we're going to bring these people to justice. But we are talking about 1 million people being out there, and even if 1% is out there, 0.5% is out there trying to commit violence, that's still a massive undertaking, and it's unlike any other event in the city. All right, I'll let Chief O'Sullivan answer you. Can you just let him know, what was your first question again?
About how he was able to escape, and I understand police were responding, I just want to know, now that we have some time between now and the shooting, did you review any footage to show, did he dip in the subway, did he get into someone's apartment building? Do you have any information of how he was able to get out?
Well, again, the parade route does have the barriers. I just want to put in perspective the volume of people that were there and how someone from a parade route could, with that many people, could jump over the barrier, person is armed, and fire into a crowd and fire. With that said, people had scattered. But I just wanted to emphasize something that has to be brought to the attention. Officers responded within seconds, and they ran toward gunfire. Many on this executive, on this dais, were here within minutes, including myself, the Chief Department, Chief Patrol. The response was incredible. What's continuing and was thorough too was the investigation. Various units within the Detective Bureau responded immediately and communicated among ourselves immediately too. We very thorough investigation. We take pride in this event too. There was a lot of steps that went here, and I just want to say I'm very proud of the work that was done to obtain these guns and make these arrests. I'm very proud of our investigators that have thoroughly conducted this investigation. So that's it.
Dan, we're going to move on. Matt Rosenberg from Sunshine Winds.
Hi, just two questions. So between the shooter and the victims, do you know who was involved in a gang? And then do you think you may not have this yet in the investigation, but was it intentional for this gang member to be at this parade and to carry out this shooting at this parade, or was it just coincidence?
Well, again, I believe this is an isolated incident related to, and it's gang related. I say that vaguely for a reason. We're identifying who was at the scene, who was fleeing the scene, and who it was, of course, victims of this act. So the investigation's still ongoing. When we're ready to release any type of name of who did it, we will.
Do you know who was involved in a gang, shooter or victim or both?
I'm aware of many people that were at the scene for that, and that are related gang, associated with gangs.
Dollar Miles, ABC.
Thank you all for your time and for being very patient, answering all of our questions. I have two. One is for the first Deputy Commissioner. We love seeing you here.
Thank you.
Can you just offer your insight, perspective on overall how things went over the weekend, the historic nature of the low level of gun arrest in this month of August, and any other insight that you would like to share on Labor Day weekend? And my second question would be with Chief Madry. We had the privilege of speaking on Friday, talking about the preparations for the parade, and you spoke about the nature of the community partnerships that really led to being able to expand your operations, your crime prevention efforts. So my second question is, after this one shooting, which was isolated, a long stretch of Eastern Parkway, you can't have everybody at one place at one time, but what are you hearing from those community partners post this shooting? Are they now wanting to see the wanding along the parade route as well as Juve?
So I'll answer your first question. I'm a proud West Indian, And for many years, as a young girl, I myself would attend the West Indian Day Parade and Juve. And historically, there has been violence throughout the years as a teenager. And I must say that I'm proud of the men and women of the police department, because starting, Labor Day is Monday, Sunday and Monday for most people, but Labor Day really starts for the NYPD on Thursday, right? It starts Thursday for us, but months of preparations beforehand. And the men and women from the entire department was flown in to Brooklyn, to those precincts that the chief mentioned, and they haven't seen their families for the whole weekend. And they worked tirelessly, so I'm very proud of them, and I'm very proud of the executive staff that we all worked this weekend. We were there for Juve, we were there for the parade, and yeah, like my coworkers said, we can't prevent everything, but we are proud of our men and women that worked very hard to get guns off the streets, to keep us safe. I walked on Juve night. Yes, I walked it, and I was very happy. And I was proud to see people out there not being afraid. Young kids, babies, grandmothers, aunties from everywhere felt safe enough on Juve, which is historically violence, but felt comfortable enough to be out there to 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. And to me, that's a win. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Dollar. We spoke on Friday and we talked about how we were able to implement a lot of changes due to the community buy-in, which we did at Juve, how we cordoned off a lot of the blocks, we screened people to get in. We did a lot of things differently, and I think this is why we had success on Juve for the last few years. So now I think it's time for us to take a look at the parade and see what we can do, what we're doing for Juve and how we can mirror that with the West Indian Day Parade itself. So of course, I'm going to, I spoke to a few people involved. I didn't get into heavy conversations because of course we were busy on Monday, and Tuesday we kind of, me personally kind of took it easy, reviewed and reflect on everything. But, I will be speaking to our partners out there, our community partners. We're going to definitely have meetings. I know Chief McAvoy, the borough commander of Brooklyn South, has already had a couple of discussions, and we're going to figure out what we could do better, how we could be more preventative and more preemptive in terms of, preventing guns from getting onto the route, preventing gang members from getting onto the route. We're going to work through that. We have a year to work on it. We will work on it.
You're reflecting on that, what you can mirror from Juve. Is it fair to say it's being discussed? I don't want to be preemptive. It's being discussed the morning.
It's a discussion I will broach. That I promise you, I will actually broach that discussion if it's not being had yet. Like I said, we're just 2 days out of off the parade, so we haven't really had a chance to reconvene some of the different groups that are involved. I know Chief McAvoy, the borough commander, he's been having discussions. I've yet to get involved, but I will broach that subject. It's something that we do for New Year's Eve. We want people for New Year's Eve. I think the makeups of the community make it a little bit more difficult. New Year's Eve, we're talking about a lot of businesses and stuff where we're really in a residential area when we're dealing with the West Indian Day Parade. But it's a subject and a topic I will broach. We have to figure out how we can make this parade a little bit safer.
And I will add to what Chief Mahaji said, our CMS workers and the GOD squad was very instrumental in helping the police department, have a relatively safer Labor Day weekend. So it is truly a community and police department partnership, and we couldn't have done it without our community partners.
Nicole Johnson, Pix 11.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for doing this and just offering some perspective and some clarity. I know that all of you, especially First Dep, especially Chief of Department, you're very connected to this community. Any thoughts on moving the parade out of Brooklyn into Fifth Avenue like all of the other major parades we have in our city? We were talking in our newsroom saying folks are familiar in their neighborhoods. So you might see folks carrying a gun, illegal guns. Do you believe that you might have a disadvantage because you're in Brooklyn?
Nick, I'll let the chief manager get a little bit into it, but you know that's really not a police department decision.
But you can maybe just start the discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I'll let chief manager say, but I mean, really, it's really not a police department.
You know, I
decision.
have a little bit of knowledge on the history of the parade, and the parade originally did start in Manhattan. And at some point, they brought it to the heart of the Caribbean community, which is Flatbush, Crown Heights, Brooklyn. Like I said, I do think you make a valid point in terms of, you know, taking people out of their comfort zone and putting them somewhere else. Maybe a more of a tactical advantage for us. But again, I think Commissioner Shepard said it right. This is something that would have to be discussed through other entities, not the police department. Will we weigh in? Of course we'll weigh in. But I think other entities have to be involved in that discussion. And I think that whether it's on Fifth Avenue, it could be on Grand Concourse, Jamaica Avenue, or right on Eastern Parkway, we still have a responsibility to work with the communities, to put our best foot forward, to make sure that our women and men are out there working with the communities and keeping them safe.
I have one more. Have you reached out to the families of that young man who passed away and some of the other victims? Is there an open dialogue? Is there anything that you can follow up on just the efforts from the NYPD to those victims?
Yes, it's our policy in the Detective Bureau to keep dialogue with the family, not just initially, but moving forward until we are comfortable to solve this crime. Sometimes they get information and get provided to us, and then we like to update them when necessary about as the investigation develops. So those conversations are being had or have had already, and we will continue to do so.
Right, and Nicole, from my end, you know, I have a rapid response team under Lieutenant Pat Gordon, and this is what they do. They go out, they visit victims of crimes. They have visited hundreds of victims since we implemented the unit, and I'm sure Lieutenant Gordon is going to be making his way over there with his team to help the family with any resources we can bring to them.
All right, we do two more. Tony DeStefano, Newsday.
Chief Madrid, to follow up on the proactive postures you're thinking about, I know Chief LePetri a few years ago had this program where gang members or people who are repeat offenders were visited before crucial events and crucial times. Is that something that can be implemented, or was it implemented? And secondarily, are you going to have thinking about undercovers in the crowds?
So just your ceasefire question, yes. Known gang members were visited by officers and the commander throughout southern Brooklyn and northern Brooklyn.
Yeah, and Tony, Chief, you want to
Yeah, I'm just
answer?
Tony, in regards to undercovers, I can't tell you. I can't tell you because if I sit here and say I'm putting undercovers out there, it may mess up our tactical response for next year. So we're going to be thinking about a lot of things. Like I said, internally as an agency, we're going to discuss what we can do to make it better. Of course, we're going to reach out to our community partners. We're going to listen to the advice of many of you in this room, and we're going to make decisions on how we can do things better and keep people safer.
All right, this will be our final question. Mark Santia, NBC.
Chief, you talked about the history of the parade, how the department's driven down violence. Do you have any numbers to sort of put that into context of just where the department's come for Juve and the West Indian Day Parade?
And Mark, I'll let Chief LePetri get into a little bit, especially with some of the years that were very high with violence and at the parade.
Yeah, so if you look, you look at it two ways. You can look at it from the 5 commands that I spoke about to the time frame of 3 p.m. to 8 a.m. on Tuesday, 3 p.m. on Friday. I mean, just 10, 11 years ago, we took 14 incidents with 24 victims, right? This year we're talking about 4 incidents with 8 victims, 8 too many victims. But when you look at the city as a whole, we've had upwards of over 70 shooting victims in those prior years. I gave it before. We had 18 victims. Again, 18 too many. But compare 18 to 74, 10, 12 years ago, again, coming off the safest August.
Mike, you're referring to citywide, correct? When you say 18?
Yep, so that's citywide. Citywide from that long weekend, 13 incidents with 18 victims.
Got it.
And Mark, like I said, I've been at this parade many years, and I forget which year it was. It had to be either 2003 or 2004. I was the response captain for Juve, and I remember at the end of the night, early in the morning, the borough XO, who was chief secretary at the time, he said, "Hey Jeff, how many shootings we had?" I said, "We had 20 shootings." 20 shootings, where we had a Juve with no shootings this year. So, like I said, history will show that we have drastically reduced violence during Juve, during the parade, during the weekend, when all the events that are connected to the parade in Juve. Unfortunately, this year we lost a life, and believe me, we take it personal up here. All right, we don't want to lose any lives. We don't want anyone shot, and that's why we're going to go back to the drawing board and make sure we can do everything possible, legally possible, to keep this parade and keep Juve safe.
If I could just add one thing that I didn't mention before. After that shooting on Eastern Parkway, 13 more guns were recovered. And if you look at the map on where those guns were recovered, they're basically right on top of the area in question. So the officers were out there after, before, after, with 13 more guns recovered after that shooting.
And what Mike says, again, it was us regrouping. When that shooting happened and we realized there was a gang angle to it, Chief Shell immediately started repositioning officers, bringing in the community response team and other teams, because we were worried about retaliation, a second incident. So we knew we had to really stand up and be out there and make sure no other incidents happened, and no other incidents did occur.
A good call. All right, thanks everybody.